Okay, so we are live, guys. I think we will wait a few minutes before we actually start the conversation to build an audience. Yes, we are live. We've been live for 1 minute and 58 seconds. Wow. Are you guys hearing me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Good afternoon to you. Thanks for
So
having
far, we have 4 persons viewing this, but we're gonna go right ahead because we're already off to a late start due to technical difficulties. However, uh, today we will be welcome to Childlink Talk or Live with Childlink. Today we will be continuing our series that we started last week, family violence and the pandemic. Last week, we spoke specifically to domestic violence or intimate partner violence or gender-based violence, as some would know it. However, this week, we will be placing emphasis or a focus specifically on child abuse. Are you guys hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so this program comes to you under ChildLink's Recovery, Safeguarding, Reintegration Initiative, which is funded by the delegation of the European Union to Guyana. As I mentioned earlier, we will be discussing family violence in the pandemic, specifically child abuse. You're not hearing me, Milton? You're trying on unmute you. Sorry. Can you unmute your mic, Milton? Okay.
I
Yeah.
am not hearing you. I am not hearing you, Shuk.
Are you hearing me now? Are you hearing me better now? Milton? Are you hearing me now? Maybe it's the earphones. Maybe it's your earphones. You want to unplug it from the computer and see? Maybe if you, let me see if I can demonstrate this to him. Maybe if you unplug it, Milton. Unplug it. Nicole, are you hearing me? Can you hear Nicole, Milton? Are you hearing her?
Milton, can you hear what I am saying?
Must be some
I don't think he's hearing me either.
Okay, so he's not hearing. Okay, I understand. So what I will do for a few seconds, I think I will end this live stream and we will come live again because I need both of my panel members to, okay, so he left.
So maybe he's going to join again.
Yeah, he's gonna join again. Okay, so we're gonna go right ahead again with the intro. So like I mentioned earlier, today we will be focusing on child abuse, continuing our session from on our theme, family violence in the pandemic. And so I will have my first panel member introduce herself.
Good afternoon again, Shaquita. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon to all our viewers. My name is Nicole Wall. I'm the project officer at the Child Advocacy Center, which is located in Region 3. I'm also the forensic interviewer for that location. And I work mainly with children that are exposed
I'm
to
hearing you now.
Okay. Okay, thank you. You're better. Yes, I'm Nicole. Sorry for that. Yeah.
Yes, and so I work mainly with children who are exposed to sexual violence, the children and their families. So that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Okay, Milton. So can you introduce yourself for our audience? Excuses, Guy Milton is currently at work and he is a very, very busy man and he's sparing us some of his time today to,
No problem. I'm
bring
here.
you some knowledge and information. So, Milton, can you please introduce yourself to the viewers?
Hi, everyone. My name is Milton. I'm no stranger to this, the Child Links program. And I welcome the opportunity to be a part of whatever they have when it comes to the welfare and the well-being of children, raising awareness. I am glad to be a part of it. I'm not only representing myself, but I'm representing the Child Care and Protection Agency that falls under the Ministry of Social Protection. This is the agency that is responsible for the welfare of children in Guyana. So I stand here today as a senior probation social services officer within the Child Care and Protection Agency.
Yes, thank you. So as you know, Child Link, for those who don't know, we work directly or in partnership rather with the Ministry of Social Protection, Child Care and Protection Agency.
Yes.
Sexual abuse cases that goes to them are referred for forensic interviewing or trauma work counseling to our CAC or that of Blossoming, who's another NGO that works in the works in the whole field of child sexual abuse, trauma counseling, and such. Okay, so once again, for those who are now joining us, today we will be continuing our family violence in the pandemic theme from last week. But this week we will be speaking specifically about child abuse. So, Nicole, can you just tell us briefly what is child abuse? And I'm going to ask this to both you and Milton. So after you, Nicole, Milton can chip in. So what is child abuse? Can you unmute your? Yeah. No, I'm not hearing you.
All right. Hi. Yeah. Great. So basically, child abuse is basically referred to, or what another word some persons use is basically molestation. Excuse me. So it's basically a behavior by one person to another, basically touching a child in an appropriate manner, touching the child's what we say those body parts that you protect, those private body parts that supposed to be covered and protected all the time. And so when an adult touches a child in those areas or the private body parts that are, when I say touch, whether it's hand or whether it's a form of penetration using an object or using the private part of the adult to penetrate the private part of the child, that is considered child sexual abuse.
Okay, thank you. So Milton, can you tell us, thank you for that, Nicole, what child abuse is?
So like Nicole, and I would want to echo some of the sentiments that Nicole would have mentioned as it relates to child abuse, because that falls exactly into what constitutes child abuse. And it speaks about maltreatment of a child. Anything that you may do to impede or intrude on the child's ability to grow and develop into what we would want them to develop into a productive individual, into somebody who will make a contribution to our society. And anything that is done to hinder that process can be constituted as child abuse. And child abuse takes all different forms. And I know that you will go through the different forms as we go along, right? But just to mention that there was a whole convention developed by that is called the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child that outlines what children are entitled to and the responsibility that comes with it. And so child abuse constitute it involves, like Nicole would have said, sexual abuse. It involves physical abuse. It involves emotional abuse,
Emotional, yes.
physical abuse that we will
Neglect.
discuss a little bit more. And neglect, right? It involves all of those things. And I know we would be shedding a little bit more light to make persons aware and zoom in on a few types of the different types of child abuse as we go along in the program. So it's based maltreatment of a child by a carer or somebody who is providing care for that child, right? Yes, Chiquita.
Okay, thank you for that. And so we know that we live in a society where children are being abused every day, in every way that you can think about it. It might not be sexual abuse, but it's neglect, or it's
Mhm.
verbal abuse or emotional abuse. And, it doesn't say that they're in a better position than a child who is going through or dealing with sexual abuse, because at the end of the day, abuse is abuse. And that is what we as a Guyanese society should, acknowledge. And we know that research has shown that girls are more at risk of child sexual abuse than boys are, but it doesn't
Correct.
take away from the fact that boys are also being abused, but possibility exists that they're not reporting it and all of these things. So these are some of the things that we're basically going to brush on or touch on as this program progresses, because we really want to bring about the awareness that we are living in a society, we are living in a world where children are being maltreated, where they're being violated, where they are being neglected, and all of these things. And children need us more than anything else. Okay, so we are also
Correct.
now in a pandemic, COVID-19. Children are home from schools. For some parents, they might think it's a bit more safe having your children home from school. But I'm gonna have you know, Nicole firstly speak to why are children more at risk of child sexual abuse during this pandemic?
All right, Chiquita. To answer to your question, first of all, I want to say that indeed children are more exposed to um, child. Is it child abuse you said in the whole, or are we dealing with child
Child
sex?
sexual abuse.
Okay, child sexual abuse during this pandemic. Um, One reason is because children are at home, and looking at our setup in Guyana here, we find most of our children are from single parent family backgrounds. And if not most, we have a large percentage of children who are from single parent family backgrounds here in Guyana. And so what happens if it's a single parent family background, and I'm not saying this is for everybody, but I'm
Mhm.
talking based on my experience in doing this work. And so what you find in a single parent family background, you have whether it's the father is the parent of the home or the mother is the only parent in the home. And so you will find that that parent will have to fend to provide food, clothing, and shelter for her or his child or children. And so even though there's a pandemic in Guyana, people are still going to work. People still have bills to pay. They still have food to provide. And so when parents or no adult supervision is in the home, children are left vulnerable. And during the time when children are supposed to be in school while a parent is at work, this is the time the children are at home and the children are left vulnerable. And so the door is open for anything to take place or abuse to enter into your home. So that is why I'm saying the number one reason is because single parent family homes, or even both parents still, if you have both parents in a home too, they still have to fend to provide for their families. They have utility bills to pay. If they're living in a rented house, they have a rented house. They have to pay for a rent. And so it leaves children to the open to let's say to they now become the meat of these perpetrators. And so no adult supervision is there. And so the children are left open to abuse because there's no school. You can't really go over to a neighbor's house. You can't really ask people to come into your house to give to look at your children and to give an eye either, because we're asked to keep our distance at this time. All right, so
Yeah.
that's one of my main reasons.
Okay, okay. So before we go over to Milton and discuss physical abuse, there are some instances where it's not ideal, but this is the only option that some single parents might have, and so what would you recommend in that instance?
Oh, sorry. So what I recommend is, I know sometimes as parents, we have trust issues with all that is going on with the education that we're getting about child sexual abuse and how we can protect our children. And so we become not fearful, but we become more protective towards our children. And so one of the things, if there's nobody to actually leave your child with, or there's nobody that you can say that, come over and just to give an eye on the children, it's important that you're able to communicate with your child during the day. It's important that you also set rules and boundaries in your home. It's important for you to talk to the children about how they can protect themselves and how they can feel safe right in their home. So you can also, as a parent, you can spot check. You give a call when it's your break time at work. You give a call when it's lunchtime at work. You call home, check in, and to see how things are going with the children at home.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. So, Milton,
Yeah.
why do you think that children are more at risk of specifically physical abuse during this pandemic?
I would piggyback on some of what Nicole would have said. It's the whole frustration. Parents might not be able, and persons are losing their jobs. One, they're not able to provide as they should because of everything that is happening around us. Some of them not directly relating to them, but because of the systems that they're in, that is undergoing these different changes. It is trickling down to the common man. Some of them not able to, maybe nobody's accustomed. You see, this is a new norm.
Yeah.
Everybody is locked into their house, right? This is something that we didn't plan for. COVID-19 is something that we didn't predict that would have happened. It came upon us, and we just had to adjust our lives to fit into what was happening. And that adjustment took its toll on a lot of families, right? It took its toll on a lot of families, and families were already experiencing their own bit of challenges, right? And this is it's like it's a compound. It's challenges on challenges. Parents losing their jobs, not knowing where the next meal is coming from. That is driving the frustration. Some parents are not even accustomed to spending 24 hours with their children. And I tell you, as a father, I have to do it. I work 3 days a week at the ministry here, and myself and my wife, we rotate. When I am working, she is at home, and when I am at home, she's at work. And it's the entire day you spend with my two beautiful daughters. And sometimes it overwhelms you, right? It overwhelms you because they want to do this, they want to do that. You're not doing it fast enough for them, and so it can be frustrating on their behalf and on your behalf, right? You're not you have like I'm saying, it's a new norm. It's a new norm. You haven't spent so much time with your children. And some parents are becoming to realize that what the teacher was saying is actually true, right? And they're trying to fit it into place and fit everything together. But
Yeah.
the frustration that you cannot provide a meal, some parents cannot provide a meal for their children. They don't know where it's coming from. And instead of looking and evaluating, even though the systems are there, they might not be operating as fast as they can for the given situation. Parents are becoming frustrated. I can't find another meal. I can't pay the phone bill. I don't know where these monies are coming from. And so that is driving some of the frustration that we're experiencing. And parents cannot deal with the 24 hours of being with, even though it's your child. These systems were in place before. You used to let the teacher deal with them for a couple hours, and then you used to collect them after school. Now, no, 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 no. There's nobody to give them to. You have to be at home there with them all the time. And that is driving it. That is driving some of the frustration. That is driving it. And that is causing parents, instead of finding avenues or sitting down and finding solutions, because they're unprepared for it, they're lashing out. And it's sad to say that the persons that are feeling the blunt of it are the children. The children are feeling the blunt of it. And we're getting reports here at the Child Care and Protection Agency. Reports are coming in of different types of abuse. I must say that we're still working because we know this pandemic will change the country's situation and change the style of parenting. And so we are on the ball. So those are some of the issues that we find that might be driving the level of frustration and causing parents to lash out at children and physical abuse them.
Yes, yes. And something that we all know, and over the past 4 to 5 weeks that I've been doing this program, actually my first program was with the youth advocate mentors, asking them, what are you guys doing with your time? How are you guys finding this time and being away from your friends? How are you feeling? One of the reasons we decided to do that is because we all as adults and as children have to adjust to what, like Milton rightfully said, is a new norm. So we know that after 6 o'clock, daddy nor mommy can't be out of the house, and daddy might normally, on the Friday afternoon, go and get beers with the boys to ease his head with regards to the bills that he has to pay and all of these things. But what we want to also reinforce and encourage you guys that all of these things might be happening, but these are still not reasons to abuse children. These are still not reasons to hit children. And it is key, it is important that you have a relationship and an understanding with your child. And something, Milton, please unmute your mic. Something that keeps coming up here is that, and this is my fifth program that I hear persons keep saying it. You're getting to know your children way better. And Nicole, you too. Please unmute because I
Yes,
want you guys to give
yes.
me your opinion on this. But you're getting to know your children way more than you've known them previously. When you
Mhm.
thought you know your child, well, now you know that you know your child because you're in his or her presence for 24/7. And children might act out as a regard as a regard because they have to stay indoors. Teenagers are not able to go out with their friends. Toddlers are confined to an area, so that is one of the reasons that they might, get all worked up. So if you can tell me what are some other reasons that children may act out during this time?
You did say that they feel confined
Mm-hmm.
to the space. And some of them don't know how to deal or to receive the information. Let me share with you. The other day, I received a call via one of our lines where a grandparent was saying that this boy was crying profusely. His mother resides somewhere in another country, and he would have gotten news that his mother would have contracted the corona virus. Um, this child was at the point where he's saying he wants to die, because to him, he probably feels that maybe this, my mother overseas, she is confronted with this coronavirus. You know, some children are of the view that when you get coronavirus, everything is done for you, right? And so he is of that, and that's role in his mind. Maybe he's thinking that, hey, I might not be able to go to the States anymore if my mother dies. I will have to stay here with the present person that I'm caring, that is caring for me. And so while we may think that this is not affecting children, it is affecting children because they don't know how to deal with their fears and how to deal with the information. They don't necessarily know how to deal with the fears and the information that they're receiving with. They cannot comprehend it as advanced like perspective. And so they are at the point where they're dealing with all of this information, maybe misinformation also, and it's really weighing down on them and making them feel as though, you know, what can I do? I'm confined to this space. I had another call the other day where a child saying, like, sir, I don't know what to do. I walk to the front of the house, to the back of the house, and I'm walking up and down. And as I walk to the front, I walk to the back, I'm confronted with the same, I don't know where to go, right? I don't know where to go. And talking about the new norm, it is a wonderful experience. Those are some of the negative, but the wonderful experience is that
Yeah.
we will be able to build closer relationship with our children, relationships that we would have never been built before. I am seeing some beautiful things. I'm able to experience my children, my daughter taking her first step. She's balancing, right? Probably something that I would have missed if she was at daycare, right? Hearing my daughter express herself openly about how she feels, something that I probably would have missed if she was at daycare. I must say that it's working well for me as a parent because I don't know when last I had to carry my children to the hospital, because I haven't had any fever, I haven't had any flu. They're going, so I'm saving there too, right? So I don't have to
Yeah.
spend to take them to the hospital because they're confined to the space. And you know, the old perceptions that when children go daycare, you know, they're mixing with other children and they might be contracting a flu from another child. I don't have that to worry right about. I don't have to worry about that. The children are going so fine, they're growing so well, right? And the interaction is a really good, it's a real opportunity to interact with your children and help and see their language development, their skill development, so that you too will observe and get involved in it. So that's my contribution.
Nicole, would you like to add anything?
Sure. One of the things I think, one of the reasons I think children will act out is because of, Milton said a bit of it, confined space. And so if we have parents that are frustrated and do not know how to deal with that frustration in a positive way, then it will cause the child to act out in a negative manner. And the reason I'm saying this is because mommy or daddy, had a hard day at work. I'm home all day. I want to talk with them about something that happened today, whether it's something, that I did. I did a nice drawing or something. My
Mhm.
brother and I had a disagreement. And so now mommy and daddy is home, not expecting, because as a child, you're not thinking or wondering whether your parent come home in a good mood or a bad mood. That's your parent, and you just want to talk with them. You just want to
Yeah.
interact with them. And so you want to tell them about your day because you're in this house all the time. There's no friends that you can go over by, or nobody's coming over, or there's no school time, or you can't bother teacher at this moment. And so what happens is that you're excited to have a talk with mommy and daddy, and so not expecting mommy and daddy had a hard day at work. And so mommy and daddy, soon as you come up, I don't have time. I gotta go hurry and prepare dinner. I got clothes to wash, and mommy and daddy kind of shove you off. You can become frustrated as a child, and you can begin to act out as well as a child. And so what happens with children, especially, I want to touch a little bit on the sexual abuse part. The sexual abuse part, if the children are, let's say the perpetrator is living in that home, and so there's no way for you to express yourself or to talk to somebody who you want to relate what is happening to, you will find that that child will begin to act out because the child is confined. They're seeing this person every day. This is happening to them once a week, nobody to tell, nobody to talk to. And so the child can begin to act out because there's no room or place for the child to express the hurts that they're carrying. And so everything will be bottled up inside their own tail. You know, when you kind of you kind of shake the bottle with soda, the pressure of the gas,
Yeah.
soon as you wrap that lid, everything can just spill up like that. And so that is what happens with children as well. No room for expression, no room that you can talk to somebody, they will explode. Likewise, it happens with adults too.
Yes, yes.
Correct. And that is so true. That is so true, Nicole. And parents, we have to get the children involved. It's not only about leaving them on these gadgets, or just turning on the TV and leaving them to watch the TV all day, because you can't only allow them to interact like that, because when they go out back to school, it makes it difficult because the teachers will not be teaching at that pace, right? So it makes it difficult. You sit down and interact with them, get them to join in the conversation, find activities to get them engaged. Like was being promoted the other day. Start your own little kitchen garden and take the children down in the little garden, let them do the little farming so that they too can see the thing that they're planting is growing. And that will add some excitement to the whole process. You see, just like how the teachers have to be creative in the classroom, as parents, we have got to be creative at home too to engage our children. It can't just be the TV. It can't just be them sitting down all day and just running from the left to the right to the front of the house. Engage them in new things. Do baking. Teach them
Yeah.
how to bake, right? Or when you're baking parents, they can be involved in the process, and they don't and take away the parents. So I will encourage parents explore new skills, right? Around the house or in the yard. Find a project that you want to do to develop and keep you interactive and keep you going.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for that, Milton. Um, I think the internet is a bit is wavering a bit. Okay, so I want to, I keep hearing my guest speakers say start the kitchen garden, and I'm not a parent, but it's inspired me to actually get started. So I'm going to purchase my seedlings and start my own kitchen garden. So I think that can be a fun activity, like Milton rightfully mentioned. It's a kind of self-care. It gives you time to clear your mind. So it works on both you as a parent, self-care. It works on building a dialogue, communication between you and your child. You say, you know what, we're going to plant this. I'm going to water. And, while you're in the garden, you're interacting, you're talking, and you would be surprised as a parent to see how much you will get your child to open up, and speak to you. And it can make this pandemic way easier for everyone to cope with. So on the last program I had, Nicole, and with the mothers, Parenting the Pandemic Mothers Edition, one of the mothers said, and it's one of our staff, Ms. Hines, she said, sometimes she gets so angry, so upset, that you just gotta walk away, go and breathe, and come back. Sometimes children or we can become so frustrated as parents that we end up becoming abusive. It might not be our intention, but you and this is the reality, mind you. This is not justification or reason, but you become so angry that you lash out at your child, you hit her, you hit him, you call them stupid. What are some of the things that parents can do? I'm going to ask you first, Milton, before I go to you, Nicole, because I want you to speak specifically to child sexual abuse with regards to children coping with the trauma. So, Milton, what are some of the things that parents can do, that will help them to what should I say, to regain their composure when they're in an angry rage?
All right then. As a parent, we have to understand that we are in control of the situation, right? We have to find what is causing us to feel angry. Most times it's not the child. Most times it's not the child. It might be some other situation that is compounding, and then the child might come on at that time. And so you are lashing out at the child not because of what the child would have done, but because of the existing situations. Maybe you don't have money, you don't have food, you lost your job. And so when the child came in, it was at that point when you were dealing with your issues. So I would encourage parents to take some time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Take some
Mm-hmm.
time and address you as an individual, right? Address you. Think about the issues that you're experiencing and you try to navigate through it, right? The child is not the issue, right? The child is not the issue. I want to contribute this. The child is not the issue, right? Let us see what is the underlying issue and try to address it. Now, as a parent, if you realize that this is the situation is becoming too much from you, it's good to excuse yourself from the situation for a moment, right? Get some fresh air, listen to some music, go and watch a movie or sit down and watch a movie with the entire family so that it can ignite some discussion, right? Sort through the issue that you're experiencing, right? Give yourself, don't be rushed to engage in finding a solution immediately and to addressing the issue immediately. Give yourself some
Mm-hmm.
time and allow yourself to sort through what is going on, right? We find that if we move on the spur of the moment to address an issue, sometimes it blows out because the way we want to address it, it comes across in a negative manner. And so that will only
Yeah.
breed a negative response. So give yourself some time to address the issue. The other thing that we can do is that we can sit down as a family, sit down as a family, and talk about the situation. Address the issue, what is affecting what is happening, right? Find solutions of how to address the issue, right? Rather than you're rushing in, you're getting angry, you're upset about what's happening, you're lashing out. That can only lead to frustration. That could only lead to physical abuse, right? That can only lead to a child being injured in the whole scenario. Don't scream at the children. Talk to the children because they're individuals too, right? They have a say in the whole process too. Talk to them about their behavior. Don't scream to them about the behavior, right? Talk to them, engage them. Mommy or daddy didn't really like what you did, right? Could you please, or could you not do it again, right? There's nothing wrong with us talking to our children on a level, because they're human beings too, and they have feelings too. The situation might not, the way you would have interpreted the situation might not be the way how it was intended to. But because of everything that is happening around you, you feel that you have to address it in this mode of, or in this way that you're addressing it. So we encourage parents to sit and talk with your children, understand where they're coming from, and explain to them how you feel about the situation. And and how you would like them to move forward in the future in addressing these matters, right? Let us
Mhm.
or even beat up on them. We often say that our society is a society that doesn't talk about issues. We know about just fighting and hitting out about issues. But I want to change that concept. We can talk about issues. We can express our feelings. We can let people know how we feel without attacking them. So I encourage you as parents, I encourage you as persons, as caregivers, sit down, give the children a hearing, and talk to them about the situation, and let us have this loving approach, and not allow the pandemic to affect how we respond to our family members.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you. So Nicole, you work in the CSC or Child Advocacy Center, and you know, there are children who would come for trauma-based counseling, children who are victim of child sexual abuse, children who are suicidal, all of these things, children who rely sometimes heavily on the support, that they received from counselors or forensic interviewers to carry on, to live. And that's just the reality, right? Now we're dealing with a pandemic, right? What are some ways in which, parents that might be dealing with these children, who might be parents of these children rather, but don't understand really, what they're going through, but might have their own things that they're dealing with? What can those parents do to help both them and their child?
All right, that's a good question, actually. One of the things we encourage parents to do is, because we know parents, they have the adult role to play, and then they have a child. Let's say, because you're talking about trauma. So if somebody's experiencing trauma, that means something had to happen in order for you to
Mhm.
experience trauma. Like you said, I'm in the CAC, which deals a lot with the sexual abuse, which causes the child to experience trauma. And so one of the things we would encourage parents to do is, it's okay, parents, to say that you don't have the answer. It's okay for you to say you don't know what to do. That is why they have the professionals like myself and Milton. That's where we come in. If you don't know what to do, if you don't know how to deal with the situation, how to handle the child that is acting out, sometimes parents think that, the whole process of the legal aspect is so slow, and they feel as though that they're not getting justice, but that's not the case. Is that it's a process, and some of these things we have to explain to parents, because parents expect, oh, so he raped my child, he should be put behind bars right away, and that's not how it works. So we have to explain to parents, it's okay for you to feel as though you're not getting justice. It's okay for you to feel frustrated, and when you feel that way, um don't lash out on the child. Like Milton was saying, it's not the child's fault. It's never the fault of the children. And so it's okay for you to come in and to seek help. It's okay for you to talk to somebody that you feel comfortable with. And I don't mean, when I say okay for you to talk to somebody, not anybody, because it's important that you talk to a professional, somebody who's trained in that aspect, to help you through the process, not to go and talk to a neighbor, or
Correct.
not to go and talk to just anybody. You might feel comfortable with somebody in your church, maybe a religious leader, but when we talk about trauma and we talk about sexual abuse, those are touchy issues. They're very
Correct.
sensitive, and we're talking about long-term trauma. And so you have to ensure that you talk to a professional who will be able to take you through the steps. Because if you just talk to anybody, it can cause more trauma to the child. And so you
Correct.
want to ensure that you interact with a professional that will take you through that process. And parents, it's quite normal, it's quite okay for you to feel like that. And Shrikwita, you said earlier, a friend of yours a few days ago talked about, she would just walk away from the situation and breathe. And that's important. We talk to parents about that. We
Mhm.
practice deep breathing exercise with parents. It's okay for
Correct.
you to breathe. It's okay for you to just lock yourself in and cry. And then when you cry and you just let it all out, and you to think of what's next. And don't
Yes.
always think about the negative. Think about something that's positive. And maybe something what's next could be like, hey, I'm just going to go out and get myself an ice cream cone so I can calm myself before I actually go into
Yes.
making a decision. And Milton said it
Yes.
best, you know, you have to think about, don't rush to make a decision, because when you rush to make a decision as a parent, you can add more trauma to the child as well. Remember, your child that is traumatized is looking to you, is expecting you to comfort, to listen, to believe, to
Definitely.
give some advice, to support, which is very important. And so you have to
Yes.
take your time to go through the process and then ask yourself, if it's a case that that would have happened to me as an adult, somebody raped me, do you think you can overcome that trauma within a week, within 2 weeks? It takes a long time. So for some people, it takes a lifetime. And trauma is something, it's like a drug too. You can get over it over a year, and then you can also have a relapse. So
Yeah.
parents, you have to be patient, and you yourself will need counseling to go through the process. That's why we don't just counsel the children, but the trauma
The
work
parent,
that
the
we do
family.
alongside with working with the family, exactly, both
Definitely.
parents. So that's important, that you don't rush to make a decision, that you take your time as a parent, because you need to also know how to cope with it. Because when we're not there, you're the counselor at home for your child. And so you will
Yes.
need a lot of resources and tools how to work with your child.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you for that, Nicole.
And
And so, mhm. Yes, madam.
and I do agree with Nicole.
Mhm.
We don't have all the answers.
Mhm.
Um, I don't have all the answers. You may come to me, and I might not have all the answers,
Yeah.
right? But we work together as a team in order to find some of these solutions, or ways that we can develop, or ways that we can navigate this issue. Sometimes the lack of information lead people to feel frustrated, and that's why we encourage at the Child Protection Agency, if a case of sexual nature comes into the agency, we realize that along the way, as we go through, when we make the police report, when a case comes in of sexual nature into
Mhm.
the agency, we first have to take a report, take an intake. When we finish taking an intake, we have to report the matter to the police, right?
Mhm.
It's only the police can investigate and prosecute people on these
Mhm.
matters,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
When that matter goes to the police will arrange for a medical to be done. That's where the child has to go and get examined, based on the report. If it's a sexual
Mhm.
case, it has to go and examine. And in today's society, we're examining children on both ends, which is the front and the back, right? Because perpetrators are doing all manner of things to children. And so when we have
Yes.
to examine children, we examine both of their parts to find out where, if a child says that they don't want to be examined, we do not force that child to be examined. If a child says, I do not wish to be examined, we do not intrude on that child's rights and go ahead and force the examination to be done. The child got to be willing to be involved in the process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Once that examination is done, we can go towards a forensic interview. Depending on the age of the child, we can go towards a forensic interview. And for persons who, I will explain, a forensic interview is where we have a trained forensic interviewer who sits down with the child while the parent, not the offensive parent, the parent, the police officer, the child protection worker, and any other key stakeholder in this process, we have them sit in another room as they watch the process. The trained professional interview the child, right? And rather than the child being interviewed and tormented or traumatized overly after they're asked about this matter over and over, we just have it done one time. So even in our intake process at the agency here, when we have to question a child about a sexual case, we don't go into details to try to get all the necessary nitty-gritty about the case. We just want to know who so that the child can be questioned one time, right? And we share as the process goes, alleviate some of their hurts, share with them along as the process go along, so that they will know at which stage this process is at. If it's at the court, if it's at the police, and child protection keeps following up while the CAC provides the counseling for that child. So we, like I said, it's a lack of information sometimes that might cause people to worry. So as we keep informing them, right? We keep informing them, it builds that relaxed demeanor in them and help them to understand that, hey, you're not alone, we're in this process with you, and we want the child to receive the justice that the child deserves, so that it can bring some level of closure for the child, if any exists for the child.
I wanna add to what Milton is saying. And he said something. If you kind of sum everything up, we said we're in partnership and we're working with you, the parents as well. So it's also important, and parents, you have that right to come into the office and to find out where the matter is at the moment, where is the case at the moment. You have that right, you have that responsibility. So you don't have to wait for an officer, when I say an officer, whether the child protection officer or whether the police officer, to call you to tell you. You have that right that you can talk with the child's caseworker, and that would be a child protection officer, to find out where is the status of the case. And so that's important for you to know. Milton explained the whole process to you, and we want you to remember that that is your right, that you can find out about the status of the case.
Okay, so thank you for that, Nicole and Milton. Okay, so as you guys discussed, I was gonna go into the question about safeguarding children. That's when I saw Chris Fergatz. I think that is commented on our live, and he said, also, I think when parents, especially mothers, when they realize that their children are at risk or are being abused, they do not speak out. They are afraid of their partners or are afraid of the negative economic impact of their families. Example, if the father goes to prison. So I'll take that it's an instance that the father is the abuser, whether it's gender-based violence or child abuse. So basically what he is saying here is that there are a lot of instances, a lot of homes where parents are aware, mothers or sometimes fathers are aware that their daughters and sons are being abused, but they don't say anything because they wonder who is going to provide for my family. Especially now that we're in a pandemic, that fear must have grown, So what would you say to that parent, Nicole?
You know,
Okay, we'll go ahead with Milton.
who wants to go,
Yes,
Nicole or
Milton.
me? All right, then.
You can go ahead. It's okay, yeah.
The law dictates, the law states that anyone who knows that a child is being abused and fail to say something about it is equally responsible as the perpetrator, right? So if a parent knows that their child is being abused and they feel, oh, I am not going to say anything about it, um, we will come after you too, right? We will come after you. Because if a child is going to divulge that they're being abused and you're going to keep it a secret for the sake of the family, right? There's a possibility that this abuser probably would have done it before and will do it again, right?
Yes.
And because nobody is holding the abuser to accountable for their behavior, they feel it's the right thing to continue doing to other children. And so we have to hold persons responsible, whether they are providing a meal, whether they're providing a service, whatever role, whether they are family members, right? We have to hold all, you're going to be pulled down with them. you're going to be pulled down with them. You're going to be held responsible as they're held responsible. And when sometimes when these situations happen and we're looking for a safe haven for the child, we
Mm-hmm.
realize that, hey, we can't send the child back with the mother or the father because they might persuade the child to go in the negative direction, persuade the child to change the story. You know, I've had cases where a child comes today and tell you one story, and you allow them, all right, then we give the family the benefit of the doubt. We allow them to go with the family, and then today, tomorrow when the child returns, the child say, hey, nothing like that happened. I did just lying to you because I want my own way, right? And so we have been very stringent when it comes to when children divulge information of these natures to us and this agency, the nature of the abuse, and then she will decide if it's comfortable for the child to return to that home environment, or if the child should be taken into care until this whole situation is investigated. And if we find that the environment that the child will return to
Mm-hmm.
might persuade them to change their story, then we have no other responsibility to let the law be enacted and take the child into the child protection agency's care, where the child can be protected until they give their story. Now, if it's your husband, mother, I'm saying to you, your first responsibility is to your child. Your first responsibility is to your child. And it's not for us to play in one role. It's for us to allow the legal body or the legal course to take action, right? Allow the police to do the investigation, allow the child protection agency to do the investigation. Please do not end these matters. The people must be held accountable for anything that they do. If you abuse a child, you should be held accountable for it because it must stop. You must stop doing what you're doing so that we can protect other children and even more protect that child is suffering from the abuse.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Milton. Nicole?
You know, Shaquita, like Milton said, somebody who knows of an abuse, and the question sounds like it's the father. And so, if the mother knows of the abuse and does not report the abuse, or if there are other adult relatives in that home that knows of the abuse and did not report the abuse, they are equally involved as the abuser. They're equally upholding the abuser and neglecting the neglecting what are the rights of that child,
Of the
which is
child.
to
Yeah.
grow in a safe and secure environment free of violence. And so I want to caution parents and caregivers and even relatives, because we have children who live in homes with extended family members and they know of the abuse and they did not report it as well. I want to caution you that you are equally involved. And so when this child, because we find when children reach a certain age and sometimes teenagers, and because the matter was not reported and the child did not receive any form of counseling and help, that child will begin to rebel. And so when that child rebels and you cannot control that child, you have nobody to blame but yourself.
Yourself. Yes.
Right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's an important point for you as parents to consider, or as relatives to consider. When you don't report and get the help that the child needs, you are responsible for how that child will turn out to be as an adult. Because sometimes, let's say it's a male that was abused, we find sometimes males, when they become adults, they become perpetrators as well, because the matter was never reported. They never got the help that they received. So, parents, think about it. You will also be playing down a line of generations of children that you would have condoned, that will be damaged and scarred for the rest of their lives. So, this is how it goes. It goes around in a cycle
Cycles.
the
Mm-hmm.
time. And so, who will feel it the most? I remember uh, um, colleagues and I were talking just this week, and they were talking of a matter of a child right here in Guyana, of a child who actually, I really don't want to discuss the matter, but it's a child who was abused, and he was a teenager at that time, and he wasn't abused by the stepfather, he was abused by somebody else. And so, because they did not report the matter for whatever reasons, one day the stepfather passed and smacked him on the butt. And that child, that teenager flipped, and he eventually murdered that stepfather.
Wow.
Right? Because he exactly, it triggered the abuse. And what went wrong a few years ago as a child, and so he just triggered, and that was it. It wasn't that individual, but because he did not receive the help. And some people think that, I want to add this, some people think that when the person go to prison, that's justice. That's not justice. You as the adult have to ensure the child receive the professional help to deal with that trauma. Not because somebody goes to prison, that's justice and the child will overcome it. It doesn't work like that. So I want us to remember, adults, if you don't report, you are equally involved in abusing that child as well. And you can be penalized for it by the court. The laws of Guyana make room for that. All right. So that's my bit on it. You have a right to report. And I don't like when parents say, he's the only breadwinner in the home. That is such rubbish. If you don't have a disability, your arms and all your limbs are working well, you can get a job. You can get a job, and you can provide for your family. And I'm sure that you can get public assistance as well. So I think we have room that we can help support parents. So that's no excuse anymore that you're saying that, he's the only breadwinner. I know that welfare provides an opportunity for you to get for you to get social welfare. If Militant can help me on that line, you get public assistance. So you don't have an excuse to condone a perpetrator in your house. I had a case where, when the matter came to us is when the last child, who was 6 years old, was being abused. And 4 sisters before her were abused by the same father, the biological father. And the sisters are now in their 20s. And now their younger sister, who spoke up of it and who reported the matter to the teacher, this matter now, and when you hear of it, you heard the father abused all the other sisters. The mother did not do anything. So you see how a cycle is being repeated? So I want to caution us as adults, especially parents and caregivers, if you condone that behavior, you are equally involved as the perpetrator is, and you are equally involved in helping, in causing that child to turn out to whatever that child will turn out to be. And sometimes, and most times, it would mess the psychological aspect of a child's development as well as their social development, because we find sometimes even when you become an adult, you can't function in a relationship properly because of what happened to you. And so parents, adults, we as adults, if you condone that behavior, you are equally involved, and you have yourself to blame as well for what will happen in the life of that child in the future.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that, Nicole. And I'm so happy that our viewers are able to see how passionate both you and Milton are with regards to issue, affecting children around Guyana. And what I want to make known is that, is it 84, correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole, percent, based on the Cries in the Dark, child sexual abuse in Guyana today, a study carried out by ChildInc, I think it's 84% of the abusers are known adults or family members. So we need to be vigilant. We need to really, educate our children. So we are a bit pressed for time. So our final talk will be basically around safeguarding children. So if my speakers can basically tell parents how they can safeguard themselves, or they can safeguard their children rather, and for as their final remarks, yes, how can they safeguard their children?
Go, Nicole.
Milton? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so it's important, parents, for you to talk about abuse in your home. No
Mhm.
more is, I remember, growing up that sex was taboo. We can no longer have the topic of sex being a taboo conversation in our homes. So it's important for us to talk about all forms of abuse. It's important for us to talk to our children about when they leave the house, how they should conduct themselves, and if something is to happen, it's important, despite of the threats the person will make, and despite of the gifts and whatever the person will offer, it's important that you let me know. I am here as your parent to protect you. I am here to guide you. I will not get upset with you and say to you it's your fault, because we had parents who said to children it's their fault because they were abused. How can it be the fault of a child whose mind is not fully developed as an adult to be the fault of the abuse? It can never be the fault of the child. Adults, it's always the fault of the adult, because the adults, their minds are fully developed and should be able to comprehend who is a child and who is an adult, if you understand what I'm saying. And so I want parents to know it's important for you to have these conversations going in your home, and to constantly check in and use the conversation as reminders. Have family time and have time to discuss these areas of abuse with your children. Let the children know as well. Children should know the number of the police station. Children should also know the number of a child protection agency. It's important for them to know those hotline numbers so that they can talk to somebody. So if mommy or daddy is not reachable at the time, or your guardian is not reachable at the time, you can have access to that hotline number at Child Protection, or you can call Childlink's number as well, and you can have somebody on the other side that you can talk to and you can relate. Let your child know, or the children know, that it's never their fault. There's no need for them to be ashamed if it ever happens to them, and it's important for them to speak out.
And it's over to the officer. Yes, yes, Chiquita and Nicole. I want to echo some of the things that Nicole would have mentioned. It's important to have the conversation with your children so that they too will understand how to communicate with you as a parent on certain matters. Have an open approach with your children so that they'll be able to come to talk to you about anything that is happening with them, right? What I want to encourage parents to do, let us first remember, everything starts with an allegation. An allegation must be investigated. When an allegation is investigated, you gotta go to the police and all of these things, right? Let us approach it with the possibility that it might have happened, it might not have happened. Let us not tell the child upfront that they're lying, because that can send children into a withdrawal stage, right? That they would not want to say anything again to you, right? So let us approach it with an open approach, that the children can come and they can talk to us, and we first listen to what they say, report it to the necessary individuals, and have it investigated. If it happened, all right, then we can get the person. If it didn't happen, we can provide counseling for the child and hold the child accountable for how they interpret things. And it might not be that nothing might not have happened. It might be that it happened in such a way that the child probably don't know to express what happened, right? So, and then we have to understand that sexual abuse doesn't only constitute penetration, and everybody is looking to define sexual abuse as penetration, but it's not penetration. It's good for us as individuals to make ourselves aware of the Sexual Offences Act, right? It involves penetration, it involves showing children videos, it involves touching children inappropriately, It involves grooming children to the stage where you give them things until they reach a stage when they're going to give in or reward you for, feel as though they have to reward you for what you would have given them. So it's good to, as a parent, to educate yourself and educate your child on some of these things so that they will know how to identify certain things, right? I would always say report it and let us investigate it, right? Talk to your children about safe and unsafe touches. Let your children know that this person should not be touching you, should not be doing this to you. Parents, be careful who you leave your child with. Be
Yes.
careful, even in this pandemic, when you have to go to work. When you have to go to work, be very careful who you leave your child with. Leave to watch over your child, right? And like Nicole would have been saying, and Shaquita would have been saying, call constantly, find out what is happening. And when you get home, talk to your child about their experience. That openness come, that they feel comfortable in talking to you. So that's the type of approach I want to encourage parents to take when it comes to interacting with their child. Teach your child body safe touches and unsafe touches. Teach your child about their private parts. Call it by its rightful name, so that they'll be able to communicate to you when things are happening to them. And the Child Care and Protection Agency hotline number is always available for you to report. And parents, if you're feeling frustrated out there, you can be presently, and I'm going to promote this. Presently, we have a UG call-in service that persons can call for psychosocial support, right? They can call and they can get psychosocial support if they want somebody to talk to, they want somebody to interact, and I'm sure Child Link offer that service too, right? And Child Protection, you can come in and you can talk to somebody, a Child Protection Agency here, and you can have somebody to talk to alleviate your concerns, and have somebody, rapport with you on these things, right? And so that's why I want to encourage parents, let us continue to safeguard them, because they are our future. We damage them now, we're looking at a damaged future. And like Nicole would have said, when the boy was touched, everything reignited about his experience, right? And his reaction did not come necessarily from what happened, but his past experience that was not dealt with. And because it was never addressed then, it now, anything can trigger it. And maybe some of the people that we're having in our society and their reaction is because things are triggering their experience that they had as children and causing them to react the way they're reacting. So it's important for you to receive psychosocial support for any traumatic event that you're experiencing, to address it, because it talks about the skeleton in the closet experience. When you have something put away there, and when an experience presents itself, it comes up upon you, right? And the person that is interacting at the moment got to feel the blunt of it. So parents, let us protect our children. Call the Child Care and Protection Agency on our 24-hour hotline service, 227-0979, and you can get person's assistance on these matters.
Yes. Yes, remember that number is 227-0979, or you can call ChildLink on 233-3500. So thank you so much for joining me today, Milton and Nicole. I really enjoyed, having you on this program to shed light on the issues which we are faced with as a society, specifically child abuse. Remember, we all have a duty to report. And like our favorite song, Milton says that if you know and you don't say, you're worse than the dirty man.
The dirty man.
Yes. So if you know a child is being abused and you don't call 227-0979 and report it, you're worse than that abuser. And I wouldn't take that back. Okay, so children do not deserve to be abused. It's a violation of their human rights. So once again, thank you guys for coming on. This program was brought to you under our Recovery Safeguarding Reintegration Initiative. Remember, we all have a duty to provide a Guyanese society free from violence for children to grow up in. So once again, thank you for staying tuned. Thank you guys for joining me. Bye.
Thank you.